going on, vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I'm going to be showcasing and discussing two Led Zeppelin live box sets. It's not just Kiss who have these extravagant bootleg releases, but in fact any band with a large dedicated following who are rabid for snagging up anything and everything will have releases like these, whether it's Pink Floyd, The Cure, The Beatles, or in this case, Led Zeppelin. The shows from Southampton 1973 and Earls Court 1975 are significant in the Zeppelin timeline with some interesting backstories, one of which was supposed to be released as a live album at the time, and both of which are solid primer recordings to delve into the bootleg world of the band. There's a lot to dig into, so enough of the chit chat. Let's jump into what this video is all about. I'm sure I've stated it before, but it's interesting that within the pantheon of huge bands from the 1970s that released live albums, Led Zeppelin is absent from the bunch. During the early part of their career, some shows were professionally recorded, such as the Royal Albert Hall show from 1970 and the Japanese shows from 1971. Jimmy Page's itch for perfectionism is most likely what prevented these shows from being released at the time. And let's not forget about the amount of tweaking and reworking albums like The Song Remains the Same and How the West Was Won received, along with the Led Zeppelin DVD. It's apparent that the only way to hear a Led Zeppelin show, warts and all, would have to be exclusively within the bootleg circles. Outside of technical snags and perfectionism, Led Zeppelin is one of the most bootlegged rock bands of all time due to their immense popularity. Despite manager Peter Grant's methods of combating this practice, amateur audience recordings and releases dating back to the 1970s, such as Live on Blueberry Hill and Going to California, are a treasure trove for fans and collectors. The ante only rose with time throughout the 80s to the present day, with numerous soundboard recordings and studio outtakes circulating. Now let's take a look at some Zeppelin history. While the band was prone to playing in arenas and stadiums around the world during the early part of their career, Led Zeppelin almost exclusively played smaller venues such as ballrooms, theaters, and clubs when it came to tours in their native home country of the United Kingdom. This was done to maintain that connection between the artist and the audience, a sentiment that tended to get lost amongst larger, unruly crowds. One of the stops on Zeppelin's UK tour in 1973 was at the old refectory within the Student Union building on the premise of Southampton University on January 22nd. From a sonic perspective, the acoustics at the old refectory were solid enough for Jimmy Page to decide to record the show for a live album that was briefly discussed in the press. The show featured the typical Zeppelin concert staples such as Rock and Roll, Black Dog, Misty Mountain Hop, Since I've Been Loving You, and Stairway to Heaven. The Houses of the Holy album was just 2 months away from being released, and there's a generous showcase of that material with Over the Hills and Far Away, Dancing Days, The Song Remains the Same, and the Rain Song. Of course, there are the lengthy renditions of Dazed and Confused and Whole Lotta Love. A pleasant surprise is the ballad Thank You, preceded by a John Paul Jones solo and a back-to-back throwback encore of How Many More Times and Communication Breakdown. Ultimately, as history would prove, the live album was never meant to be. The release of Houses of the Holy was close on the horizon, so perhaps the live album would have conflicted with its release. Some go as far as to say it wasn't one of the band's greatest performances. Sure, it had its flaws, but to circle back to Jimmy Page's perfectionism, maybe it didn't make the cut. The tapes sat in the vaults for decades, and their existence was acknowledged when Page was assembling the DVD and How the West Was Won live album, only for them to leak into the bootleg circles in the mid-2000s. The full show was released in 3 volumes by the Swingin' Pig. Then there was the condensed 2 LP set, One More Night, which eliminated some of the lengthier cuts from the night. The release of the Dancing Days Are Here Again box set presents the full show under one umbrella. The front cover of the box consists of the original poster made to promote the show, which is a rarity in its own right, fetching up to over $10,000 in a private auction. This is an extremely limited release with a numbered sticker placed in the top right corner of the box. As you see, my copy is number 11 out of 300. The back of the box features the track list along with some photos taken from the show. Seeing these shots of the band performing in such tight quarters, that being the stage of the old refectory, must must have been a thrill for the spectators at that particular gig. It's a lift-up box, and included on top is an insert featuring the original poster design, and the flip side has the track list and John Clark's review of the show written for the college newspaper Wessex Scene. Each of the 4 LPs are pressed on different colored vinyl. LP1 is on marbled yellow vinyl, LP2 is on marbled blue vinyl, and both LPs 3 and 4 are on marbled red, all of which featuring the show poster as the center label. While still unsanctioned by the band and Atlantic Records, Southampton 73's association for being recorded professionally for potential release does sort of bleed itself into this gray area of quasi-official bootleg recordings and is truly a rarity gem in terms of sound quality in the arsenal of Led Zeppelin bootleg recordings. While the Southampton 73 show has its significance in sound quality, some shows that hold their significance in Zeppelin history are the ones performed at Earls Court in London in 1975. To say these shows were massive is an understatement. The band managed to sell out England's then largest arena for 5 nights in May that year, earned respectable press from English critics, and these shows are regarded for being their best. The staging carried on from Zeppelin's previous North American tour with a grander light show, the neon Led Zeppelin backdrop, and laser effects for Jimmy Page's guitar bow solo, all of which was airlifted from the States and included were video projections on an edifice screen costing £10,000. The set list for these shows are very much a refined version of the set performed during the North American tour of 1975, with the songs that were tried early on in the leg dropped entirely. Most of the stage staples mentioned from the Southampton 73 show are present, but there is obvious emphasis on the band's recently released album Physical Graffiti, with the inclusion of Sick Again, In My Time of Dying, Kashmir, and Trampled Underfoot. For the first time since late 1972, the middle acoustic set was reintroduced for these shows, providing light and shade as opposed to the heaviness of an all-electric show. The exercises and indulgence, being the live versions of No Quarter, Dazed and Confused, and Moby Dick, went on to great lengths of 20-plus minutes. Some of the notable highlights are a dusting off of the stage rarity Tangerine, and the final show from May 25th, including the bonus encores Heartbreaker and Communication Breakdown. Depending on the source, it's rumored that soundboard tapes for all the Earls Court shows exist, and a couple shows were recorded via multitrack. One would think with the video screen above the stage that all 5 shows were captured onto video via the live feed, but only the final 2 shows from the 24th and 25th exist, which circulate in their entirety in bootleg circles since the 1990s, and excerpts appeared officially on the Led Zeppelin DVD. Professional archiving aside, audience recordings of these shows were bootlegged as far back as the mid-70s. The release of Unstoppable Metal Machine presents the full soundboard recording from the final show on May 25th as a whopping 5 LP box set clocking in at 3 hours and 45 minutes, the longest Led Zeppelin show ever recorded. The front cover of the box is based on the original poster designed to promote the Earls Court shows, which is one of the most highly coveted posters in rock history. The back cover features the band's sigils in the background and the track list. Because of the time constraints of the sides of vinyl, the running order is adjusted with some tracks appearing earlier or later when they were performed based on the actual set list. According to the bottom right corner of the box, my copy is number 155 out of 250 numbered copies. The top of the box opens book style, and on top is a 12-page booklet filled with amazing photos of the band and liner notes talking about the backstory and significance of these shows. Each of the LPs are pressed on a gorgeous piece of different colored splatter vinyl. LP1 is on white vinyl with blue splatter. LP2 is on white vinyl with black splatter. LP3 is on yellow vinyl with blue splatter, LP4 is on red vinyl with black splatter, and LP5 is on black vinyl with white splatter. The center labels of all the LPs feature individual and band photos, along with the track list of the respective LP on the flip side. To me, this snapshot in time is Zeppelin at their absolute peak. This was just before everything started to go topsy-turvy with eventful US tours, musical shifts, and personal tragedy, which would ultimately end the group. So there you guys go. That is my showcase of 2 Led Zeppelin live box sets. Here's a question for you guys. Do you guys own the Southampton 73 or Earls Court 75 recordings? If so, what do you think of them? Please drop a comment down below. I'd love to know. And if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the records spinning.